Yeah,
Ramon, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
sure, with pleasure.
Yeah. Where are you at the moment in Germany?
Well, I'm in my house close to Berlin,
Yeah.
in the little place called Stahnsdorf,
Yeah.
and it's between Berlin and Potsdam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father was born in Dresden.
Ah,
And I see it's not that far from where you are. It's about, is it two
no, it's
hours or?
it's it's around 200 kilometers. It's
Mhm.
my usual way because I'm teaching in Dresden in the at the
Oh, I
music
see.
academy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's a regular way from here to
Oh,
Dresden.
okay. 200 kilometers, that's quite
Yeah.
a distance to
Yes.
travel, yeah.
Hmm.
So, and you were there in during lockdown in Germany, and how did that affect you in your, did you have projects and about the and with the teaching and so on?
Yes, well, the concert projects of course it's everything as all the
Yeah.
musicians, almost all the musicians. It's my last concert with audience I've played in at the 1st of November,
Mm,
and since then only teaching.
mm,
And for a while we have been teaching just online, which is also not easy, and it's for the students harder, and also for me because online you never really hear the
mm.
quality of the important details. It's
Yeah.
just and I could realize, and I've spoken with many colleagues, it was with practically everybody the same, that the quality of the playing of the students
Mm,
went significantly down of the most
really.
students. And
Mm,
one had really, luckily, since the beginning of March, we are allowed to teach normally.
mm.
And they
Do you?
came very
Mm.
quickly back, the quality,
Oh.
let's say.
Mm,
And I've heard also from some colleagues that, in a way, the motivation of the students was also gone. I didn't feel it with my students, but I heard from other colleagues that they
mm,
have to really, the students have to struggle with, for what shall I practice?
mm. Yeah, I think this is also what I hear a lot. It's that, that motivation for seeing the end result. And I wonder if also amongst, I also hear like conductors would, oh, not conductors, composers would say, one would say, I enjoy the quiet time. I'm more productive in the quiet time, but others need that stimulus of other people to create. And yeah, did you find that? But you say your students were all motivated.
Yes, the
Mm,
students were, at least I didn't feel any lack of, or kind of
mm.
that it became less, the
Yeah,
motivation.
yeah, yeah.
And they were, I feel a little bit like, a little bit, it's of course not too much,
Mm,
a little bit like a father of my students. And so I think there's more than just the relationship of the, the lecturer and the students.
mm,
And so if they have some problems, they can always come to me, and we can discuss also some personal problems. So, but there was no reaction of it. And
mm,
generally, this time of the lockdown, no concert and so on, uh, well, I must admit I don't feel it as so productive. Of course, I'm keep practicing, and also using the time, let's say, for some technical tasks which always can be better, and I'm using for this. But at the end of the day, uh, we need this communication with the audience. It's
mm.
not a dependency, but we are not playing just for us or making music or for our four walls in the room. We're
Yeah.
playing for the people, and it's also in interaction between a musician and the audience, and this interaction we needed. It's not just for getting the applause or whatever, but in a positive case, there's happening something more than this. And I remember it was also very interesting. Many years ago, I was in a performance of a phenomenal cabaret actor. It's a Dutch actor, and it was so fantastic that I went a few days later once more to his performance to see it once more. And the first performance was wonderful and no problems. And the second performance, somehow there was a bad atmosphere. It didn't come from him, but somehow something was wrong. I felt in the audience, and I felt how he was struggling against this strange atmosphere, and that at the end he's managed to get the people to join him in sense of activity. It was a big lesson for me, yeah, to watch to this artist, and yes, so I've seen what does the interaction mean.
Yeah, this what you're saying. I've heard somebody else talk about this, saying that he can sense the audience extremely well. You know, I think it was a pianist who told me this, that he, when he goes on stage, he can already feel, you know, this energy from the audience, if it's a good one or not.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you know, I didn't realize that it was so sensitive, you know, for artists that they because initially when I started talking to artists and started getting this realization that it's the audience, you know, that it's not just about the funding, it's about the audience, about this interaction that you need. But I thought it was more of a the applause, you know, that you feel this gratitude of the applause. But I see there's a much deeper sense, you know, but it's not just about the applause, it's the whole performance, that energy that's backwards and forwards. So it's not just that 5 minutes or 10 minutes applause.
Yes, the applause is just a nice reaction. It's fantastic if the people have liked it. But the real thing is happening, in my experience, during the concert. You can really feel if the people are kind of more beautiful music, but and so on. But or is there something really happening in this moment? And I feel it also if I'm let's say practicing a piece and somebody is entering the room. I feel immediately a different energy. Yeah, and imagine if there are 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 people in the audience, it changes the thing completely, and it's in every sense. Also, I remember once I played a Schumann's cello concerto with an orchestra in Germany, and normally I don't don't look into the audience, but in the moment I opened the eyes and there was a guy in the first row and he was I was so shocked in that moment, that I almost was kicked out of the piece. I had really to focus to stay in the piece about this shock of this obviously somehow not very interested person who was sitting in the first row of the concert hall.
But this is actually a cellist here in Vienna told me that when we spoke about this, and I, you know, said it's about the applause. He actually said to me that, and it connects with this thing that you're saying. If only one person out of the whole audience would come to him and say, look, you know, I didn't feel like coming tonight and I was really tired, but you really touched me by your playing. that to him is enough. And it's almost like the opposite now. You're saying you almost, it's either the one person really who's into it, or that one person that puts you off who's not into it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. But what you say, it's really, if somebody says like this, I had luckily also some of these experiences that people came, well, I was so tired and I was thinking, should I go or should I don't not go to the concert? And then I felt much more energized. That's a big present to the musician. That's because what is music? Music is good. A good music, it's a positive energy, and let's say if Schubert, a Beethoven, a Brahms, and but also music creators from completely different genres than classical music. Yeah, they're in a way in a touch with something unexplainable, and they pass it to the musicians, and we musicians we pass it to the audience. So it's an incredible process in that moment, and therefore, yeah, this, but this, that process, it has to be communicated, and the communication with the people, it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is also in this time that we should talk about this, and I think this connection between the audience and the artist, yes, it has to be there while you perform, but the things you are telling me and the things that I hear from many artists is such a great insight for me. And just as you're saying now, you practice this piece before the concert to portray this message and
Yes.
to give something to the audience. But it doesn't just, you don't just do it the day before or a week before. It's months before where you really, and it's not just that piece. It has other pieces coming before that and other studies coming before that to make you able to interpret and to produce this piece as it is. And I think what we should start realizing in lockdown, and the focus on the artist, it's not, I'm not saying other careers are not affected. I'm not saying shop owners are not affected, but they are affected in a financial sense. They're affected in a business sense, whereas artists are affected in their lives.
Yes.
You started at a young age and developed as an artist, and to be able to do this job. It's not as if you decided 3 years ago and today you're a concert pianist or a cellist. So there's a long process in this, and when this process then suddenly stops, of course it stops a life. It stops a part of life, a part of a life. And I'm very grateful that artists share these things, because this is what I think the public should understand.
Yes.
And everybody who makes decisions understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's the essence of our life. Yeah. We've deducted ourselves or dedicated ourselves to this. It's not. It's much more than just a simple job. Of course. Yeah. It's. We musicians are very lucky in the sense that we have to deal daily with the greatest spirits who ever lived on this earth, yeah, like Beethoven, Bach, Schubert, and so on. And it's an incredible task for us to bring this music to the audience. So it's a kind of maybe a holy service also, which we are doing every day. Yeah, and also we are preparing this, every day. But I'm sure that there are also some people, owners of shops, which are also doing it not just as a business, but
Yes.
also with their hearts. Yeah, of course, it's
Yeah.
but still there's I think that there's
Mm.
something more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah.
I think what I want to ask you is because you're so involved with students, and you said now you're almost like a father figure for your students. And this also, I hear many of the students that I have photographed. You know, it was almost like, and I'm talking now at the time when it was really when everybody was in stricter lockdown, where the students really had to only do the Zoom lessons and so on.
Mhm.
But many would look so forward to the lesson, or
Yeah.
would look so forward, or they would say something like, "Oh, my professor or my teacher, you know, I'm, looking forward to that, or that helps me a lot, or that motivates me a lot." So I find this connection between the teacher and the musician very interesting.
Yeah.
That you almost, as you say, this father figure, and also the ones that now is at a higher experience level, and can also for them motivate them from that perspective. Even though you've never been in a lockdown situation, but then motivate them from that experience. But my question is, do you think that the younger artists now will have a quicker, or like a jump in the fact that they value what they're doing? That they really start thinking now about the importance of what they're doing. That
Mhm.
they maybe at a younger age, you don't really you go with this flow of, but now suddenly when they stop and they think, why am I doing this? And then realizing, but this is what I want to do, that this would bring out something more of their artistry, for the future, for what is coming after.
Yeah, well, I think it's a matter also of a personal attitude of each musician. And it doesn't depend from the age. Of course, you can sit there and be just depressed and look at your bank account, which is
Mm.
melting and melting, and or you can look honestly very few positive sides of this, and or read more books, or be making more sports, or also think about your life, and so it's a very personal thing. Yeah. And I've heard about several musicians which even committed suicide because they out of desperation. But what does it help? The frustration, or whatever. And with the students, it's basically the same. On the other hand, the students, they don't depend so much from the material side
Oh,
usually.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So it's maybe a little bit they have, or the parents are financing, or they have some scholarships or whatever. Yeah, so it's not so much the matter of paying your bills
Mm.
and so on for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So they
it's
don't have that burden.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's a very personal
Mm.
approach. Yeah, how is your mental structure and so on. Yeah.
And I'm wondering also if it's like you're saying, they almost at rock bottom. They
Mhm.
they don't have anything to lose. But do you think this will bring out a movement, say, from them, or new ideas, or new way of producing music? Because they're young, and they have other a different, maybe a different mindset, more daring or so, that they would start doing different things.
You know, usually it's my experience, and they're the most of the students are very conservative. It's strange. It's strange, but you know, one can understand the time of studies. It was my feeling, and I see it also with many other students, also not my students. It's a very cozy time in a way. Of course, you have some exams and so on, and but at the end of the day, it's somehow, yeah, it's a very comfortable time. At least the music studies. Yeah, I cannot judge about medicine. I think studying medicine or whatever is much harder than music studies. Yeah, but the real jump into the life, and this is also for many young people a shock, is the end of the studies and the start in the real life. And there's mostly people start to create new ideas or develop new projects, and because they're forced to. Yeah, if let's say, if we speak about orchestra instruments, there are, I remember in the 70s, in Germany at least, there were, for one, statistically, I read it, there were around 40 candidates for one free place in an orchestra. Today it's over 200 for one place, and the chance to get it, to be already just invited to an audition is not very big, because of course orchestras are not inviting 200 people or 100 people. Yeah. And so it doesn't mean that these people who are not invited are not good musicians, by no means. It's just that it's a kind of luck, or maybe an optical thing. I remember it. I had a recording with an orchestra, and in the room where my staff was, they were choosing candidates for a new position, and the comments of the people of the commission whom they invite, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe. Oh, he doesn't look very friendly. No, he won't be invited. Or she's this or that, or yeah. And so, what does it have to do with the playing? And on all these people who might be very good musicians, for some unexplainable reasons, don't get the chance, and then they have to create new projects. So the life forces them to invent ideas. And let's say the people with initiative, they created, and sometimes fantastic things, some fantastic new things, and that's great if they are able to do so.
But what do you think? What could be the reason that there are now many more musicians, or are there less orchestras?
No, generally spoken, there are many more musicians.
Okay.
Many more young people who are, for what reasons ever, I see it also in the competitions when I'm in the jury. There's this German national competition for young people. It's before they're starting to study. It's called Jugend musiziert, and in the 70s I've also played this competition, and well, luckily I won it twice, and so I had for many years I wasn't connected. I had some pupils who participated in the competition, and I was always against this endless first prizes, endless second prizes, yeah, because it was a kind of invasion of prizes. But since I'm in the same jury, I'm regular in the same competition, I'm invited to the jury. I can understand it. There's so many more young musicians of highest quality, yeah, that it's rather impossible to say you're just one first prize, just one second prize. Yeah, there are too many good young people.
But this brings me now to the question about education.
Yeah.
And because you're saying now that there are many more students in music, yet there are many people who say that that artists, or that art is not valued because in schools, for example, you know, art is being the funding for art is being cut, less music lessons or less time to study some form of art, and that the schools now, I mean, for schools, for entry level to certain schools, you have to have a high mark in maths and in languages, for example.
Yeah.
So there's this almost for me this idea that maths would bring you somewhere, or science would bring you somewhere. Yet art is sort of less and less. There's somebody told me about a music teacher who now teaches physical education because there's not enough hours. They cannot employ her for just music because it's not enough hours in the week. And now I'm wondering if we should not start talking about the fact that art should be taught in schools, and now not to create musicians, or so that everybody becomes a musician, but that there's more of a value to art. There's more of a, first of all, the development of the brains of the children, and then second of all, that we will create a society then where people appreciate art, where you know, funding would be more towards art, and maybe orchestras, and especially in this time where many artists don't receive the financial help, if we talk in this financial sense, but that when decisions are made, that it's made to see art as a very valuable part of society.
Well, I read that there were several researches which confirm what you've told there. It was always the same result, that in the schools where their pupils, in normal schools, where the pupils had the double amount of music lessons, or also painting and whatever, it affected also the other subjects like maths, and also the social behavior and social maturity of the children. And it's also proven by several other researchers, brain researchers, and that it affects a lot our development as humans. Yeah, of course, almost nobody of them will become and has to become musician.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this sensitivity for the life, that there's much more than to have some chic clothing, or the most modern iPhone or whatever. It's that kind of development. But unfortunately, I don't know how it's in other countries. But in Germany, there's a kind of contradiction, because on the one hand, it's the artistic education in the schools becomes less and less. But on the other hand, I read constantly that they are needed. They are searching for music teachers, and they don't find enough for normal schools. So it's in a way a contradiction, and it's so there's still a feeling of need.
Yeah.
But it depends also from the area where the school is, and from which parts of the community the children are visiting the school, and that's also important.
But I know in Germany there has been a lot of research done. I've seen some of the research that's been done specifically on music. I cannot name the university now, but I know that, or the science laboratory where they did it, but I know it's definitely done in Germany. So it's interesting that the science comes from there, yet, as you say now, some schools, it depends on the schools. But it's also the system, I think our education system, there's a writer and a marketer in America, Seth Godin. He actually talks about this, that the education system is based on the industrial era, our education system. And that we maybe now in this pandemic start thinking, because really music and art, everybody in this time where they were isolated, if you hear, people started watching Netflix and they started listening to music, they started reading more, some people started painting. So I know here our neighbors, the children went out to the park and they knitted. The little girls started knitting again, and what we did in this time is we reverted back to art. Everybody reverted back to art. And wouldn't we say then that how important is this then? There's nobody that started a maths congregation or something where, it's people started doing things with their hands. They started baking, they started cooking, they went into nature and so on. So that's people's natural instinct almost to revert to art.
Well, if it's really the case, then the pandemic has more positive sides
than
one could think.
Yes. No, definitely. But tell me, on this note, what did you do in your lockdown time? Did you start a new hobby, or did you do something interesting that you normally don't have time for, because musicians don't have a lot of spare time?
Well, I cannot tell that I've invented myself anew. Yeah, absolutely not. I just take for some things which, like being a lot outside.
Oh yeah,
It's I take more time for this, for long walks and just enjoying the fresh air, the movement, which is usually there's not a lot of time. But I cannot tell that I've found
no. But that's also that's wonderful that you did that. I've spoken to a ballet dancer who said to me the other day that she went on her balcony and she saw in the plants, because she's planted a few things, and she saw a bee or a bumblebee suddenly in the flowers, and she noticed that, and she realized that these things that we didn't have time to notice, or to stand and just to sit still and notice things. So, and of course, like you say, going for walks and going into nature, it's wonderful that we had the time to do that.
Yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course. It will. I always wonder why don't we do in better, let's say, better times? Why
Yes.
don't we do
Yes.
it? Or at least myself. I cannot
Mm.
judge about the other people. Yeah, but for me, generally, let's say the my at least half life, the being in the nature, it's a very important part of my life and the inspiration to be on the water. I'm a big boating fan.
Oh,
That's my
really?
big
Really?
hobby.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a boat, and the area in eastern Germany around Berlin, it's
Mm.
phenomenal. We have fantastic rivers, lakes, and they are all
Really?
connected, and
Mm.
it's such a nature beauty. And and
Mm.
there are some places which in Central Europe became very rare, where you really, when you stop the engine of the boat, uh, you don't hear any noises, just wind, birds, and
Oh,
the
wonderful.
water, and that's it. And
Mm.
it's so fantastic. And this absolutely calmness,
Mm.
really, that you hear your ears
Mm.
ringing
Oh,
almost. It's
really?
so
Okay.
calm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
And
I that. Mm.
it gives so much energy.
Yeah. Now, I think I live in the city now, and I mean, I go to the parks and so on, but you're always aware of people around you. But I
Hmm.
can imagine if there's nothing, that nothingness that in nature is
Yes,
is almost fullness, because you
yes,
you you then observe everything, or you are so quiet down that you hear the smallest little details and the birds and so on. Yeah.
yes. Or there's some little I don't know, beetle or whatever is
Yes,
going, and
yeah.
you watch it, and let's one can also to come back to the music. One can learn so much also just watching an animal, the way how it moves. It can be something small. It can be a bird, a cat, or whichever. Yeah,
Mm,
uh, and so it everything is connected with everything,
mm.
and uh, and we have just to keep our eyes open to it and our sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And maybe this was a good time for us to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's this slowing down, where you almost feel we're always on our way to something. There's
Mm.
always a schedule, and it's always, you cannot be here for long because you have to move on to the next thing and then doing the next thing. And I actually found uh, that I can think, but I can stay a little bit longer because there's nothing to go to. It's
Mm.
like, okay, so now I can sit next to the pond. I watch the ducks and Stadtpark, but so I could, it's like, but I can now watch the ducks a little bit
Mhm.
longer. And I think it's that I think it's that feeling that we all had. Is almost like we're so used to this flow of things, this next thing, next thing, next thing, that suddenly we could stop and not go to the next thing.
Yeah, but but that's our nature, and that
Yeah,
we it's a I think generally spoken it's a positive thing, because
yeah,
it's we are always looking for development.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, and so of course it's wonderful to sit in the Stadtpark and
yeah.
to and to watch to the ducks. Yeah, it's but it's no. I think it's normal that one cannot do it for hours.
Is
Yeah,
exactly.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
our lives, we want to have a certain flow,
yeah,
and only some yogis or monks, or
yeah.
some Tibetan monks, or something like people like this,
Mm,
they're able to really to make
mm,
their life stay, and to find sense in it. And it's absolutely fine and great. Yeah, and the saddest thing or way of life, in my opinion, is the one when the 9 to 4 job, and then coming back home and eating, watching TV, next day again
Yeah.
the same, and the best moments of the life is to travel somewhere for holidays.
Mm,
It's a very sad life. So this
exactly.
wanting of development of movement, it's yeah,
But I
it's
think,
positive.
yeah, but I think this is why it is so frustrating at this point, because I think it's like you say, that happened and we could enjoy it or we could do it for a while. But then it's like this, you saying it's now time to move on and it's now time to do again, to create
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
And I think this is the frustration when it happened and we realized it and we lived it, but then it started continuing, and I think we're on that stage now where we had enough watching the ducks, or we had enough of
yeah,
just
yeah. Because
pondering
in
in the garden. Yeah.
yes, because in the pre-COVID time, it was our free decision if we watch the ducks
Exactly. Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
we travel wherever and do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's a kind of I don't want to become political now,
Yeah.
but it's a kind of dictatorship
Mm.
of the virus or of the politics or whomever.
Mm.
We are not free to make decisions. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. Living in Central Europe. It's
Mm.
amazing that we cannot travel in a free way to whatever country we wish. Yeah, which was the most normal thing for us.
Yeah.
It reminds me. I'm born in Latvia, the former
Mm.
Soviet Union, where we've left the Soviet Union when I was 8.5. But it's a little bit like living in this
Mm.
dictatorship. Yeah,
Mm.
just another form of dictatorship,
Mm.
and that's the difference. Also, I was thinking in the last maybe 2 years about a sabbatical, half a year sabbatical or something like this. Yeah, but nowadays a sabbatical, but not the way I would
Yeah.
wish.
You wanted
Yeah,
it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the point.
Yeah. But how did you start in music in
Well,
Latvia?
it was a very natural way of starting with the music. My father, he was one of the most important cello teachers in the Soviet Union. And already when he was in his 30s, many teachers from other Soviet republics went to listen to his lessons.
Okay.
And
Mm.
his pupil, he was not teaching in the music academy. He was teaching in the music school, the special music school in Riga. And there are many famous musicians which were in this music school, world famous musicians like Gideon Kramer, like Misha Maisky, like Elina Garancha, just to name a few, which came from this. So only the best of the best could enter this music school. And we lived. Our apartment in Riga was just 3 minutes walking from the music school. So the pupil came regularly to practice in our apartment, in our house, and also they were listening to records. And my father was listening with the students to records and
Mm.
analyzing recordings of that soloist and that soloist. And it was the most natural thing for me to become a musician. I grew up in this world, and the
Yeah.
dreams of becoming an astronaut or whatever were very
Yeah. Yeah.
short.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and already when I was 6 years young, I knew that I will be that,
Really. Mm.
yes, I
Mm.
will be a musician. Yeah, so it was the most
So,
natural thing.
Did your father teach you then?
Yes, yes, from the beginning until the diploma.
Mm.
And then afterwards, I went to other teachers just
Mm.
to get more experiences, and there were some teachers which were especially important for me, some others which were less important. Maybe the most important teacher for me was not a cellist after
Mm.
my father.
Yeah.
It was a violinist. It was the great violinist Sándor Vég, who was
Mm.
teaching in Salzburg. And so Salzburg became for many years my second home. And I used to have a piano trio in Salzburg,
Mm.
and but Sándor Vég made it possible that I would have also worked big cello concertos or cello pieces
Mm.
with him. So it was an experience which is important for me until nowadays.
Really.
Yeah,
Mm. And
and
what was it about him that is was so important for you?
well, he's a very specific approach to the music, uh, to the articulation of the pieces, how to understand music. It was very specific, and for me, still especially for classical composers like Mozart, Schubert, Beethoven, there's nothing better than him, or nobody
Really.
better.
Mm.
There are
Mm.
fantastic other interpretations, of course, yeah,
Mm.
but for me, it's still the musician of the classical composers.
Mm.
And in another thing which was also kind of inspiring, Sándor Vég said it was almost in every lesson which I had when I had my solo lessons with him.
Mm.
It was he spoke with a strong Hungarian accent,
Mm.
and I have played with the greatest
Mm.
string player of the century,
Mm.
with Casals, Pablo.
Oh, okay.
And so the
Mm.
spirit of Casals was in every lesson, almost every lesson I had
Mm.
with Sándor Vég, and it was it was just phenomenal, and I'm so thankful that he made it possible to
Mm.
study with him, and it's also interesting that there are some specific things of the approach to the instrument of the string players, yeah, which you can immediately recognize that this player has studied with Vég. I remember
Really? Mm.
I had one case. There's in Berlin. She's now an elderly lady.
Mm.
She was a very famous violinist, Christiane Edinger. She's played as a soloist with Berlin Philharmonic, with New York Philharmonic, and so on.
Mm.
She doesn't perform anymore, but an incredibly active lady, and you can hear that she was once a big soloist. And we meet from time to time, and just for fun, sight reading mostly string quartets, and because she didn't play a lot string quartets, I played also very few string quartets. And there was another violinist who joined us, whom I
Mm.
knew from former times, and we were playing, and the way she drove her bow,
Mm.
of course, she was also with Vég,
Really?
studying with Vég. I recognized just
Yeah.
from the way she was driving the bow. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah,
That,
and you
yeah.
can really recognize the
Mm.
people. It's so specific. Yeah.
Mm.
And so it was
That's
incredible.
incredible.
Yeah.
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 But tell me, and your father, how was it to be taught by him?
Well, well, he was really a phenomenal teacher.
Mm.
He's still alive, luckily. Yeah, he's now 88 and in very good shape. And let's say like this, it was for him much harder than for me.
Really?
Yeah, and he
Mm.
had a patience with me. I would have kicked somebody like I was
Really?
behaving as a child or as a teenager to
Mm.
him. I would have kicked 1,000 times such a pupil like I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he was just phenomenal. Yeah, and it was also very interesting. I told about this before about the teachers which came to listen to his lessons.
Yeah.
I was a few years ago in a jury for a competition in Latvia, and there was a wonderful young girl, a cellist from Lithuania, and she's won the first prize of the competition, and her old teacher, he's accompanied her. After the competition, he came to me and he said, well, you know, when I was young, I visited very often the lessons of your father.
Oh.
And I've learned so much from him. And it was really a very touching experience to meet somebody,
Yes.
who himself is a wonderful teacher, as one could hear with this young lady. It was.
And that your father was sort of his inspiration as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I know from several other cello teachers, same things, but he was the only one I met personally.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, isn't that wonderful that you had that upbringing, you know, that you were exposed to that and exposed to the music, and that your father could have been such a great influence in your life as well.
Absolutely. He was, he still is, I must say, he is a dream father. Yeah. One can dream to have such parents as I have. Of course, there are also things which are not so, but so what? I see the positive things of them, and I'm endlessly thankful for having had such parents.
That's wonderful that you say that. And they're also in Germany.
They are living in Germany. They used to live until 2 years ago to separate their lives in three parts. So the base was Germany. In the wintertime they were in Israel. In the summertime they are in Latvia. But now it's a little bit too much for them to travel to Israel.
Oh, I see.
So they are now in the summer in Latvia. They have a house in an incredible place. It's in the middle of the wood, and 3 to 4 minutes walking to the beach.
Oh wow! Oh, that's
ideal.
So
one can understand that they are
that's
in the summer there.
Yeah. Oh, but this is so great. But tell me, Ramon, what is your wish for when this is all over?
Well, my wish is that people would, and also we musicians, but also the audience would feel the necessity of the spiritual side of the life. Because one cannot neglect that the life was going more and more into the kind of commercial side. And that it would be wonderful if more people would understand that the other aspect of the life is not less important, the spiritual side.
That's
true. My wish.
I think also, as you say, for musicians as well, and maybe also people understand the value of art, you know, and the value of live performances.
Absolutely.
You know,
And this also, that tension of the special tension of a live performance. Also the things which are not going perfectly. Which makes a live performance so special. I also remember I was once in Finland in the Savonlinna festival, which is a phenomenal opera festival, and I heard an opera, and the tenor, it was what was it? I Puritani from Bellini, and the tenor has an incredible role there, and incredibly virtuosic role, and I felt in a certain point how the tenor had got problems with his voice. Yeah, something was not okay. It was not from the beginning, but during the performance, and just to feel the tension, how would he manage it? Yeah. At the end, he managed it brilliantly. He came out of this kind of hole.
Yeah.
And it was really for him a big victory. And I will never forget. And you can experience it only in a live performance.
Yeah, I think this is also something that somebody said, that live performances always have something. There's always, it's never perfect, but it's that something that makes it so great to watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's say if they are just very tiny, small imperfections.
Yeah.
Then that's live.
Yeah.
On the CDs we have usually a perfect product, and it's great, but it's not the reality. And yes, therefore I also think that it's great that we can make some live stream concerts nowadays, but it's also not the same like sitting in the concert hall and feeling this special spirit.
Yeah. This is also what a ballet teacher told me. He was also a judge on a competition, and because they sent in videos for the dancers, instead of, they couldn't have the competition, of course, with an audience, and he said, although they had entries from countries, from all over the world, from people who couldn't necessarily have come to this competition, yet the videos were all so perfect. It was, you can see that it's done so perfectly, and it almost it's too perfect. It wasn't.
It's not the reality.
It's not the real thing. Yeah.
And if you listen, it was the matter of perfection or imperfection. It was also once I was driving, and when I'm driving, when I'm alone in the car on long trips, I'm listening a lot to the radio, and I heard a live recording of Beethoven's Fifth Piano Concerto, and the soloist, well, there were here and there some little mistakes, nothing terrible, but here there. But the performance was so fascinating. I was already, for a while, I was standing in front of my house, but I couldn't get out of the car. It was so fascinating, and also with the whole imperfection of this play. It was still great, but it was not. And that's life. That's the real life.
Yeah. No, that's so true. Yeah. But thank you so much for this.
It was a big pleasure for me.
Conversation. Such wonderful insights and how you see.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Do you ever visit Vienna?
Well, at the moment there are no plans. I've played in Vienna in the Musikverein with the Radio Symphonieorchester and a few other times, also in the Concerthaus and some other places. At the moment there are no plans for Vienna, but I'm praying that it will take place in the concert. Of course, it won't be obviously live performance. It will be in Innsbruck with the Tiroler Symphonieorchester.
Oh wow! And when is that?
Well, the concerts are planned on the 14th, 15th, 16th of April, but obviously it won't be a concert. The orchestra is still discussing in which form, if it will be a production, video production, or a live stream concert, or whatever.
I see. Okay.
It's still their process of discussion what will happen. But so Innsbruck is the next hopefully next place after half a year of not playing.
Okay, well, I hope really that it happens, and well, it will happen if it's live streaming and recording.
Yeah.
But I hope for you also that soon there will be an audience. I think even if it's half the audience, but as long as there are an audience, that's so important.
Yeah.
But whenever you come to Vienna, please write to me. I would love to meet you in person.
Yeah, in every case, it was such a beautiful conversation with you. So
I'm so glad you enjoyed it too, and thank you for your insights, because I think it's important for musicians and for artists to share these things and how they see it and how they feel about it. I think it's very important. Would you mind if I post this on YouTube?
Of course, you can. Okay. Feel free. Sure.
Good. Okay. Thank you so much.
Petra, thank you.
Okay. Have a lovely day.
Hope to see you soon.
Yes, I hope so too. Bye.
Bye.